This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so again, welcome to online instruction to support at-home learning. So I gave you some of the context and the background. Our specific outcomes focus for today is one, we're going to set the context of online instruction. Okay, so I know we've been using online instruction. You haven't been using online instruction necessarily this year. So I just want to share some of the new highlights and how that relates to an at-home learning context. Once we have that background, I'm then going to move to using online lessons to assign teacher assigned lessons. Okay, and that is going to again be in the context of an at-home learning situation. Then we will move to monitoring online instruction with time on task and as well as those alerts. So this will be a good refresher. But in number 2, I do have to say that for you advanced users out there in our virtual training, we have a very, very exciting update. So I'm really excited to share this with you. It's going to come out, it's expected to be released next week. And then finally, we'll finish off high level, just some tips and tools at our at-home learning site to support families. So you don't have to do all the work, that you can give them this website, and there's a lot of great stuff and tools for them to support online instruction at home. All right, for those of us that are using GoToMeeting for the first time, no problem. Let me just give you a quick orientation. When you first log in, this is the screen that you see, and down below you have your control panel. So if you see your mic in your camera, if that's green, that means it's on, but your mic should be off because I've actually muted you all because there was just some interference going on. Okay. Additionally, in the top left-hand corner or right-hand corner, you're going to see like the waffle cone, number of attendees, chat, and settings. So the important thing to note here is just the number of attendees and chat, because in our session today, we're basically going to be using these two functions. The mic, if you have like if I need to clarify a question with you, and the chat. Okay, so this is a lot of great updates, information leading you to explore, but the main function we will be using is our chat function. All right, now with that chat function, just a few things to note is that chat function is there, but when you see enter your message, that's exactly where you want to type in your message. It defaults to everyone. If there's somebody that you see in the people that you want to private chat, you certainly can do that. Okay. Finally, our resources for today, we will be using, we have the teacher success guide on your right that you see 2019, 2020. So I may be referencing to that because you have that copy from the fall when we came to support your site or at the district trainings. If you don't have it, no worries. Since school closed on March 13th or 14th or 16th, we have created the special educator guide. So it specifically takes out all the good pieces from the teacher success guide and puts them into an at-home learning context. So I will be referencing this today, and I'm going to have Mona actually go ahead and put this educator guide in the chat. And so when you look at the chat, go ahead and click on it, then you'll have the educator guide available to you. Now, by no means do I expect you to be looking at the educator guide to be learning and from my facilitation and navigating your iReady dashboard. That's quite a lot to ask for. So I ask that you keep this educator guide for your reference, and then we'll go ahead and you can access it later. All right, so just to start us off, we've got a good number of people on our training today. So I would like just to get a needs analysis so I know where to pitch and where to go into more detail or where to leave or to go more high level. So I would like to know, how comfortable are you in assigning teacher assigned lessons and monitoring and responding online instruction reports? Okay, so if you feel you're comfortable, like you're the go-to person at your site, that you can monitor, you can respond, put comfortable in the chat. If you're somewhat comfortable, you're like, hey, you know what? I know where to access the reports, but I'm not sure if I know all the functions or if I'm utilizing them to their full potential. Go ahead and write somewhat. And if you're like brand new and you're like, I don't know, I'm just eager to learn, go ahead and write unfamiliar. Okay, let's see what we got. Go ahead, type it in. Comfortable, somewhat, unfamiliar, great. Okay, somewhat. Okay, good, excellent. Letitia, I think you're more comfortable than you think you are. All right, let's keep going. Somewhat comfortable, Marisol, right? Somewhat, Edith, great, great, okay, excellent. All right, so it looks like the majority of us are somewhat comfortable, but knowing who typed it in, I can say some of those somewhats may be a little bit more comfortable than they deem themselves to be. So how we're going to approach this training is that I know we have some unfamiliar, so I will acknowledge the unfamiliar, no problem. Somewhat, I'm going to give you some reminders, some refreshers, and some updates. And for those of you that are comfortable, I want you to think about this training in the context of like, okay, I'm confirmed, I know what I'm doing, yes, and I will have some new updates and some tips and tools to be mindful of in an at-home learning context. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to turn off my camera now so that you can focus on the content and not me and my animation. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, so the first things first, want to explain the new iReady's lessons and promoting student engagement and how you can use these lessons to support at-home learning. Okay, so to set the context, you know that these lessons are driven off or built on the college and career readiness standards. They are automated, they're driven by the results of the iReady diagnostic. Okay, they are automated, they're differentiated instructions. So just being mindful that if families don't know that they're automatic, that they're differentiated based on the diagnostic results, that's something that's helpful to communicate. Okay, the idea behind the online instruction lessons is that it complements your teacher-led instruction. So just a key reminder that there are not going to be 5 lessons that focus on the final E. Okay, there's going to be about 1 lesson because it complements your teacher-led instruction. So keeping this in mind in an at-home learning context, if you want students to do more practice around a specific skill, yes, we can assign them this lesson, no problem, but then just think about how we want to leverage that with some other resources. Okay, as we mentioned, it's automated and differentiated instruction. So as you know, if this is my 5th grade class, Santino, in my 5th grade class, he scored overall early 5. But we see here that based on the results of the diagnostic in reading, in these domains, this is where he tested. So he's going to be receiving lessons in his weakest domain first. So you're going to see that he's going to be receiving lessons in vocabulary because it's his weakest. Okay. Same thing for Michael. Michael is 1 grade level below, but he's going to be receiving lessons in these grades and domains, and he's going to be starting off with informational text grade 2. So let me just pause here. In an at-home learning context, nothing changes, right? This is still coming from the MyPath diagnostic. But what's helpful to know is that communicating to families that they are working on lessons in the MyPath based on their diagnostic results, and it's starting with the weakest domain first. The reason I mention that is I've received quite a few emails and calls saying, you know what, the parents complaining that these lessons are just way too easy. Okay, so we just need to be mindful that it may not be all lessons in all domains. It may just be 1 domain that they're working on because they need to fill some holes. So what does that mean for us as teachers? That means that we just need to go back and look at Santino and just to say, hey, what is the diagnostic results? Where is he performing? And then communicate, you know, he's working in vocabulary because that's his weakest domain. We're strengthening that area. And please know that the other domains are a lot higher. Okay. The same thing works for Gina. Okay, so Gina is going to be receiving lessons in early 5, and Tristan is going to be receiving lessons in numbers and operations at grade 2 because this is the foundational domain. Okay. Just for overall context, we know that we have reading lessons that focus on these grade levels. So you can see that these 3 domains, PA, phonics, and high frequency are the foundational skills, and vocabulary and comprehension stretch all the way grades K through 8. Additionally, we have close reading. So if you're a student, basically from the diagnostic places in grades 2nd through grade 5, he or she will receive lessons in close reading. For math, you can see that all the domains are K through 8, and then math learning games are K through 5. Okay, math learning games are new this year. Students did not have access to math learning games last year. So just quick shout out to the training tomorrow that we will specifically be focusing on math learning games. If you are middle school here in your attending right now, please note that back to school 2020, we will have math learning games for middle school. For our new lessons, you can see here just by looking at the pictures that these lessons, we've done a lot to revamp our lessons to make them more interactive and more engaging. Okay, so by looking at these pictures, you can see that the students, they do have to be interacting with the language. Additionally, for math, as you look at the pictures, it's more doing and less talking, so you have to be interacting with the math. So that's one of our key principles when we think about these new online lessons. So for Alum Rock, you've been doing iReady for about 4 or 5 years, and you started off with these lessons. We will always have old lessons, and we will always have new lessons. And the purpose for that is because we're constantly looking at the data and redesigning to promote better interactiveness and engagement with the students' learning. So one thing that we've done with our new lessons, when it has a blue background and a green button that says go, that's our new lesson, and we're promoting an active experience. So less talking, more doing. When that happens, students are diving into the lesson. They start with a challenge. If they get that challenge correct, that gives us information to where we can respond to how they're responding to instruction. So if I'm a student and I get that answer correct, guess what? I can skip some of that explicit instruction. Whereas if I'm a student and I get it wrong, then the lesson's going to provide more explicit instruction to support my learning. Okay, so if I get that problem wrong or whatnot, the program, as you know, iReady does not give the answer right away. It leads us to the right answer. So it really promotes learning within mistakes. And then for strategic scaffolds for our EL learners or whatnot, we have a lot of different scaffolds that include pictures, visuals, dictionaries, and things to click on to support the language development. So all that to say is that when we think about our new online instruction lessons, they're really promoting student ownership and student learning. So what I'd like us to do is think about this in the at-home learning context and say, okay, now that I know, or I'm confirming my understanding once again about online instruction lessons, how can I use these lessons to support learning in an at-home context? Well, one way is to have students continue their MyPath lessons. MyPath meaning that the diagnostic lessons, right? Another way is to assign lessons for me as a teacher to support my whole class, whether it be grade level or off grade level instruction. And so we need to think about the context for Alum Rock. Are we using these teacher assigned lessons to review content for our grade level? Or are we using these lessons to promote new concepts with our students? So whatever you're thinking about using these for, whether it be review or new content, you can use the teacher assigned lessons, okay? For those of you who mentioned that you're comfortable with assigning online lessons, this is where I want to confirm some understanding, and then we have a few updates as well, okay? So what I'd like us to do is we're gonna go ahead and log in, and we're gonna log in, and I want you to think about your context, your grade level, and I want you to think about a lesson that you would like to assign to your class, okay? And there's several purposes for this. One, I wanna make sure that you can get to the scope and the sequence and access all of the lessons that are available for your grade level. And second, I want to make sure that you can find a lesson and you can navigate within that lesson to think about how you want to teach the class or a small group or support a student in office hours. And then third, I want you to think about how you can learn more about the lesson or how the lesson is teaching the skill, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first model, and then I'll give you an opportunity to log in and go find that lesson yourself. Okay, so I'm gonna go to my iReady dashboard, and over here, because I want to go to instruction, the whole scope and sequence, I'm going to go to assess and teach. I'm going to go to instruction, and let's go to reading first. For those of you who are comfortable, this leads you to it leads you to your back end. And our focus here is finding that scope and sequence. So I'm going to scroll down, preview or assign online lessons. It defaults to the scope and the sequence. So here you can see all 660 lessons that we have available in reading from emerging K to late 8. Now, putting it into context, I am a 4th grade teacher. So I'm thinking about using these lessons for teaching new concepts to my class. All right, easiest way to filter down is to put in the grade 4. That will give me all the lessons that are available in grade 4. Now I have 66 lessons that are a grade. Now I need to think about what is the skill or what do I want to teach? I know that I want to focus on comprehension, so I'm going to click on comprehension. That will further filter down the number of lessons, 25. Now, as I'm thinking here, I can scroll down through the 25 lessons, or if I'm thinking about what I'm teaching, I know I'm teaching with text, I can start to scroll through what lessons we have for text. And so I see text structures. Great. I'm going to click on text structures, and this gives me more information about the lesson. One important thing to think about is the time. And I know for those of you who are comfortable, you're like, duh, Jen, I know all about time. But how does this relate to at-home learning? Okay, so you have your MyPath lessons, and the reading lessons can vary between 12 minutes to 15 minutes for the younger kids, all the way to 25, 30, 40 minutes for the older kids. So if I'm deciding to assign this lesson to my students for the whole class, that's fine. I just need to be mindful that it's 25 minutes because we do have our recommendation of 30 to 49 minutes per week. Okay, I'll talk more about the time a little bit later because it's been amended because of the at home. But my point here is be mindful of how many of the minutes because I don't really want to assign one lesson each day. Okay, that adds up quite quickly. Okay, all right, so now that I'm recognizing the time, I can go over to the lesson. So I'm going to click on the green button, instruction, and what you're going to see is the blue background and the green circle. This is considered one of our new lessons. This is, for those of you who are unfamiliar, these are the lessons. These are the lessons that are in the scope and the sequence, and these are the lessons that the student receives. Okay, so one quick refresher is that in the MyPath diagnostic and any lesson that I decide to assign as a teacher, it's coming from the same scope and sequence. Okay, couple things to point out here. What's helpful is that teaching from an at-home learning context, I can access this notebook right here because really I don't want to do the whole lesson. So I'm going to come here. That notebook will give me access to all the parts of the lesson. Instruction like page 2, activity, quiz activity number 1. Okay, so thinking of an at-home learning context, if I'm teaching text structures as a new concept, very simple for me to do if I want to get the class together or a small group. I can start off with just doing maybe a couple examples and working through the text with the students. Then I don't have to do the whole lesson, right? I can actually go in and assign this lesson to my whole class to have them work on that lesson and complete that lesson. Okay, so for an at-home context, this notebook is very helpful from a teacher side. Reminder that students do not have access to this. Two other things to be mindful of is this level D. You may get families asking you about what does level D mean? My student says they're on level D, it's too easy. Okay, level D is 4th grade. How do I know that? Because level A is 1st grade, level B is 2nd, level C is 3rd, level D is 4th grade. So just being mindful if parents or families ask you about that, that's what that means. The other thing with our new lessons is that there's a setting button. This is a student function, not a teacher function. Okay, so when I click on that as a student, this tells me audio support or text blocking. So I can see as a 4th grade, like I have to read it, right? But if you feel that there are some students that would benefit from audio support and they have not found this setting, you can communicate that to the student or the families and to say, please turn your audio support on. And when I do that, you can see that we have audio that will read the passage for the student. Okay, all right. So with that said, that's a little bit about the new online instructions and really how to drill down, find the scope and the sequence, and identify a lesson that you would like to assign to your class, whether it be review or to teach a new concept. What I'd like to do now is give you a couple minutes to do the same thing. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to log in, go to Assess and Teach, find a lesson based on your grade level that you would like to assign to your class. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to do that, and then we're going to focus on actually assigning that lesson to your class and working with that. Okay, so don't feel like you have to go ahead and assign, because I've got some important key updates to work with. All right, so let's go back, and I'm going to give you a couple minutes, 2 minutes, to log in, do that exploration. If you find the lesson and we still have 2 minutes, go ahead and start poking around and look at how that lesson is an active experience, or students are diving right into the lesson. Okay, let me give you a couple minutes to do that. Okay, keep working. This is for Sean. Sean, over here where it says grade, this is where I put in the grade level. So grade 3 or grade 4.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Oh, no problem. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so here I have the lesson, the domain, and over here it's grade. Just go ahead and type in your grade level.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Question, I actually got into a lesson, but now I can't get out of it without going out completely. How do you do that?
Okay, so if let me go into a lesson. So I'm in instruction.
I'm actually in the right before the preview button. It says lesson.
Oh, right before the preview. So are you click go?
Yes, I guess I did hit go.
Okay, no worries. When you click go, you're in the lesson. So what you can do is basically this tab right here, it's showing here. If you want to exit out, you can just click on the iReady dashboard.
Right, well, right, I understand that. But if I hit this, it's also going to knock me out of the whole system.
It shouldn't. Okay, try this. Do you see
Try it.
Let me do my drawing tool. You see my spotlight?
Okay, it knocked me out. I'll get back in, but
oh,
it took me right out of the iReady.
Okay, apologies. I was going to say the next thing we can try is this X right here in the lesson.
Okay, no problem.
Thanks, Sean. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right, here we go. So you've had a chance to, in your iReady dashboard, look at a lesson and find a lesson that you would think about assigning to your class. Okay, so before we go ahead and assign it, I'm going to do a quick pause, and I'm going to ask Mona to see if there's any questions in the chat that we have, and then we'll consolidate our learnings and then take the next step.
Hi, Jen. The only question was the one from Sean that you answered. So
Okay.
That was it. No one else has asked a question yet.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll keep moving. All right, so with that, now that we have the lesson that we want, let's move into how to assign that lesson as a teacher assigned. And here's where our some major, minor updates have happened and some major updates are coming, okay? So to set the context, we have identified a lesson, okay? Now, before we assign that, or when we assign that, what does that look like from the student dashboard? Okay, so I'm gonna point out a few things that are new this year and something to be mindful when you're communicating with families. All right, so here is the K through 2 dashboard. If I click on reading, you're going to see over here on the right-hand side, we have My Path. You have the diagnostic lessons in the green, and then obviously close reading is for this student scored in comprehension between grade 2 and grade 5. Over here, you'll see teacher assigned lessons. Okay, so for grades K through 2, they can see 3 lessons that are available to them. You can also see that there is a due date. So this is something new that is a new update this year. So when it comes to an at-home learn, due dates are optional. They're optional. You don't have to put a due date. But in an at-home learning context, our recommendation is that you do include an update, a due date, because one, it keeps everybody accountable. And with our new report that's coming, it will be very easy for you to identify. Okay. All right, so with that, we also have my progress where students can keep track of their learning, and my stuff where when they pass lessons, they can take their 400 coins and they can play games in the rewards. Okay, so if parents are asking about games, there are online learning games and there are math games. Online learning instruction games are the games that they earn for passing their lessons. Grade 3 through 8, same thing. If I look at reading, I've got my MyPath. And then over here for the teacher assigned lessons, you notice the same thing as K through 2. We do have those due dates available and we recommend that you put them in. One thing for the 3rd through 8th grade dashboard is you're going to notice past due. So if I am a student and I do not complete my lesson, what happens to it? Does it just disappear? Does it just fall off? Actually, no, it doesn't. It goes into the past due column. So even if I'm in progress or even if I haven't finished it, I can still complete that lesson. So maybe too much information, but just for you to know, as a student, if I haven't completed that lesson after 60 days, then it will disappear and fall off. Okay. All right. So they've got my stuff too. So that's what it looks like from the student dashboard. Now, when we thinking about the at-home learning context and how to assign lessons, we need to be mindful of a few things. One is we need to consider the scope and sequence of your curriculum. And we've already talked about this. Are we reviewing content or are we learning new content? Okay, something to help you decide if you're reviewing or content is by standard. Well, I'm focusing on text structures 4 point something with text structures. Like what lessons do I have in iReady that focus on this specific standard? If that is your question, we actually have these documents. So for those of you who are comfortable with iReady, you most likely know these, but this is a great thing for a resource. Okay, so they're called the California Math Correlations and California Reading Correlations. And so where do we find these? So because we're talking about it, I'm just going to go there and lead you to the fish here. All right, so if I'm in my iReady dashboard, I'm going to go to Help. As I go to Help, I'm going to scroll down and you're going to see the correlation documents right here. If I'm clicking on Reading, it will bring up the Word document here and we can see that it starts off with grade K. So you can scroll down to grade K, or if I know that I want to do text structures, I'm going to do Control F and then start typing in text structures, and that will bring me to all the places in the document for text structures. And I can see here, yes, 4.5, text structures part 1. There's also a close reading lessons that focus on text structures as well. Okay, so in summary, this document basically has the standards and tells you what lessons that we have available in iReady that focus on that standard. So you can be more purposeful and intentional when you are assigning lessons. All right. The second thing is to consider the needs of the individual students. So right before we assign the lesson, if I'm going to assign text structures to my 4th grade class, thinking about the diagnostic results and knowing my students, perhaps I've got like 5 EL students that are way below grade level in comprehension in 2nd grade, 1st grade. So I'm going to be mindful and I might not want to assign this lesson to these students, so just differentiating. Okay, I'll show you how to do that when we assign the lessons. And then being mindful just to regularly review progress and adjust. Okay, the last thing as we consider assigning online lessons comes back to our time on task. You know that our recommended time is 30 to 49 minutes per week in reading and 30 to 49 minutes per week in math. What happens in an at-home learning environment? We've adjusted our time And so now our recommendation is 45 to 90 minutes. Okay, so we still need to be mindful of how many teacher assigned lessons we have if we expect students to be doing lessons in their MyPath. It can quickly add up. For example, I've had some teachers email me and it says, oh my gosh, I've had families, they're calling me and they want their child to do 1 hour of iReady lessons in reading per day and 1 hour of iReady lessons in math per day. Well, if it's 90 minutes or 45 to 90 minutes, they're already maxing out that time by Tuesday. Okay, so just be mindful of how much time we're asking students to do. All right, so we're going to go in and we're going to assign that lesson. And a new update within the last, I think, 6 to 8 weeks is this update right here. It's the available, let me put my spotlight on it. It's the available date right here. So when you assign a lesson, you need to tell the system when you want students to see this lesson. That's available date. This is a required input. Do not pass go, required. Due to the high volume, we are recommending that you set the available date the day before you want the assignment to be available. So if I want my students to see this tomorrow, April 29th, I am going to put today, April 28th, into the available date. Okay, so let's go ahead and go in and do that. And I will model first, and then I'll give you a moment to do that as well. Okay, so I'm at my iReady dashboard. I'm going to go to assess and teach. You're already here, but I'm going to take the steps again. I have decided that I am going to do text structures. All right, and for text structures, all we have to do to assign it is just click on that box, and that means this box will light up green. Green means go, so I'm going to click go. You can assign that lesson to your whole class. You can assign that lesson to a specific report group, or you can assign that lesson to just individual students. Now, taking my 4th grade class for text structures, I do know that I have 5 students who are really below grade level that I don't want to assign. So I'm going to go this route. I'm going to assign it to my class, my whole class, and then I'm going to go back and delete it from the 5 students that I don't want. Okay, so I'm going to reassign it. And this is my demo class, but you'll have your class here. So I just need to, I'm going to assign it to all the 4th grade classes. And you will just have to click on your class, then you're ready to go. And then I will need to complete my available date. This is my demo account. It hasn't been updated. And when I want it due. So if I want it to assign it on the 29th, I'm going to make it due on the 30th. Great. When you're ready, go ahead and click Assign Online Lessons and boom, changes saved. You're ready to go. Okay, let me go ahead and give you a moment to go ahead and assign that lesson yourself. And if you're thinking, well, Jennifer, I don't know if this is actually the lesson that I want assigned, don't worry. I'm going to show you how to cancel that lesson or remove that lesson for those 5 students that I didn't want, that I don't want them to take the lesson. Okay, let me give you a minute to do that. You should already be there. Go ahead and follow the assigned and go ahead and assign it. Okay, so you've had a chance to assign that lesson, go through, and great. And it looks like we got our questions answered. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to move on. And now I'm going to set the context of like, okay, we've assigned that lesson to my whole class. And all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? oh my gosh, I don't want it to be due on April 30th. I want it to be due May 1st. And I also don't want to assign it to my whole class. I want to remove those 5 students. No problem. How do I do that? Very easy. So it's always going to be under Assess and Teach. Defaults, you've created the assignment right there. Now it's going to be under Manage Schedule. Okay, so I'm going to click on Manage Schedule, and you're going to see all the lessons that I've assigned. And you can see, oh yeah, Jennifer, she just scheduled Text Structures Part 1. There it is, and the due date is 4:30. Now, how do I make changes to this lesson, whether it be due date or students? Very easy to do. I'm just going to click on that plus sign. That is going to bring up the details of the lesson. And over here where it says due date, I'm just going to click on edit. And then I am going to decide, yep, I would like May 1st is when I would like that due. Click, save, it's done. Okay. Now, if, for example, I said, oh my gosh, I don't want any of my students to do this, then I can click here, cancel for all students, done. But what about going back to those 5 EL students that I just really do not want to take this lesson because I don't deem it appropriate for them? No problem. All I have to do is come up here, cancel by students. So I'm going to click cancel by students. Now, you know that I have a demo account. So in my demo account, I've got lots of 4th grade classes. You'll just have your class list right here. Okay, and all I'm going to do is just click on the 5 students that I do not want them to complete this lesson, and I will cancel the assignments. Okay, so when the students log on, they will not see this lesson. All right, okay, so that takes care of how to manage the schedule, and if you would like to differentiate and assign the lessons. All right, great. So just some key reminders when assigning lessons, and then we'll pause and see if you have any questions. Consider the scope and sequence of your curriculum. Are you reviewing or are you adding new content? Also consider the needs of the individual students. Use that state correlations to help identify the standard that you want, and don't forget it's under the Help tab. If you want to assign a teacher-assigned lesson, go to Assess and Teach. And don't forget that that available date should be set the date before. It's a required field. And if you do want to cancel by your whole class or by student, you certainly can do that. And now once you have that, it's just to regularly review progress and adjust. So before we move on to monitoring lessons and me introducing our brand new update that's coming next week, Mona, do we have any questions in the chat?
No, Jen, the only question I had was just about how to how it would appear for students, which you then showed everyone. So I think we're all set unless somebody else has a question.
Great. All right. You have a question, go ahead, chatter it in, and but we'll move on to the monitoring online learning. So monitoring online learning in an at-home context, it's the same thing as in person. We want to be monitoring the time on task as well as the percent lessons passed. But considering our context, we now have diagnostic assigned lessons that are coming from the MyPath, and we also have those teacher assigned lessons. So the question is like, well, I want to know, are they passing their lessons? And so we can look right here and you can see if they passed or they completed in the percent passed. But this doesn't tell you whether it's MyPath or teacher assigned. It includes both of them. If you want to differentiate on what is teacher assigned and what is diagnostic assigned, currently, until the end of this week, you need to choose a student. So if I choose Danielle, this will bring me to her individual report, and I can drill down to the lesson path. Okay, so I'm going to blow up the lesson path. I can see the lesson path here, and I can see what's not passed and what's passed. Now for this student, I can see that these are all lessons from MyPath or diagnostic assigned. How do I know that? Because if it had the purple font teacher assigned, this would indicate that this is the lesson that I assigned and that this student passed this lesson. Okay, so in summary, right now, if I want to drill down and I want to identify a specific teacher assigned lesson, I need to drill down to the student report, okay? Brand new update expected to be released May 3rd. What is this? It's a brand new report called the Personalized Instruction Report. So it answers a few questions. The question that I have is that if I assigned my 4th grade class Connect Area and Perimeter, I want to know in my class who has completed Connect Area and Perimeter. And if they have completed it, I want to know who has passed and who has not passed. This report will answer that question. Okay. The report will also answer the question in the My Path or the iReady lessons, which of my students are struggling with the same skill? That report will answer that question. Okay, so some very exciting updates. So I'm going to be in contact with Alum Rock District to see if we can provide some additional support around this new training. So I wanted to mention this because I know it's a big thing with at home. We are assigning teacher assigned lessons, but what's the easiest way to drill down and see which students in my class have completed it and passed it? Right now, this is the current way, but please note that the update is expected to be released next week. Okay, so I'm not going to spend any more time on this because that update is really right around the corner, and we were just informed of it Friday afternoon. So it's hot off the press. All right, so that leads us to, if we're looking at teacher assigned lessons, what are some things that we need to be mindful of? Okay, so for Alum Rock is making sure that we're looking at time on task, making sure that students are in the period of 45 to 90, being mindful of students that are less or way over. Also considering that they're passing their lessons. So to do that, just be mindful of those alerts, because in an at-home context, if they get those red or those yellow alerts, those red alerts, they aren't receiving lessons in that domain. Okay, so we need to think about that. So a few tips of the trade. For those of you who are unfamiliar, this is key. For those of you who are somewhat, a good reminder. And for those of you who are comfortable, this is confirmation. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start over. iReady, I come in, I just want to make sure that my students are passing. Okay, so defaults to instruction. I can see I have some alerts. I'm going to go down to monitor online instruction. I'm going to change it. I'm going to go to 2nd grade and let's do math. Okay, so you've got your subject, you've got your specific class, and it defaults to the current week. So just a key reminder, instruction goes from Monday to Sunday, Monday to Sunday. So I can see here we've got time on task, they're passing their lessons. Okay, I'm really concerned about alerts. I'm gonna find out who has alerts. Okay, Cooper. Cooper has one or more domains turned off and he's struggling. So let's take a look at Cooper. Okay, I see for Cooper, numbers and operations is off and he's working in mid-grade level. Be mindful, it's helpful to note that. Algebra and algebraic thinking, interesting. We are now working above grade level. And geometry, we're in late grade level. Okay, interesting. So as I come down here, I can start to see what lessons that we have not passed and why the domain has been turned off. Okay, so quick refresher, we get those reds when we take a lesson and we take it again and we do not pass it. Okay, and we go ahead and we take the second lesson in the same domain, and guess what? We take it twice, same lesson, and we do not pass it. So we've not passed 2 consecutive lessons, and that's why the domain has been turned off, and Cooper is not receiving any more lessons in geometry. He's moved to his next domain, algebra. Okay, so when we're not passing lessons, as teachers, what's the first thing that we need to be mindful of, especially in an at-home context, is the time on task. I see here 9 minutes. Okay, I know that the majority, like 90% of lessons in math, are approximately 20 minutes. So this one, let's take a look at this. This one happens to be 20 minutes. Okay, so what does that tell you about Cooper? Cooper, one, he could have rushed, or because it's late too, and we're in 2nd grade, I may not have gotten to this concept yet. So he may be struggling with it. So as a next step, I really need to check in or just communicate, because I see a pattern here, and communicate with the family and Cooper, like, hey, we need to focus, we need to take our time, or check in and say, are you struggling with these? How can we look at different supports for Cooper? Okay. The next thing that so time on task is essential to look at here. It'll save you a lot of time. The second thing that we want to be mindful of as we're looking at students who are struggling is we're looking at algebra. We see that we're in early 3, and Cooper is 12 minutes, and then he took the same lesson again, 7 minutes. Again, how long does it take this lesson? Approximately 26. So is it a focus issue or is it a learning issue? It could be a combination of both, but we know that Cooper is in, what grade is Cooper in? Grade 2, right? So grade 3 is beyond his grade level. So I need to ask myself as a teacher, is this something that I can support Cooper in above grade level? Okay, or if not, if I'm like, you know what, Cooper, you're doing a great job, but if you fail that lesson, struggle with that lesson, the domain's going to be turned off. And you know what, I'm okay with that, because I see this as our greater priority. So I'm going to focus our efforts in numbers and operations. Okay, so in summary, we need to, as we're looking at monitoring data, first look at the time on task, and then be mindful at where they're approaching, what grade level they're working in. Okay, last thing, just as a quick refresher, I'm going to go down to numbers and operations here. And I see that we're struggling in different areas, but we did not add within 100. And so we've got for numbers and operations, we didn't pass. Okay, so I can click over here. I can turn the domain on once I feel that I've provided support, but if it's a focus issue, I'll just turn the domain back on. It's one way to do it. I can also click on Explore Resources. So if we're adding within 100, I just need to think about, this brings me to Tools for Instruction. These are teacher-led resources. They're not worksheets. So when I think about supporting Cooper or kids that would benefit from this skill, I look at my resources here in numbers and operations, and he was placing in grade 2, and I just look out of these 5, is there something that is aligned to that skill? Okay, most of the time there is, sometimes there's not. We're constantly adding tools for instruction, so it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. It's just something to be like, is there a resource here in the tools for instruction? All right, okay, great. So, all right, well, let's see, Mona, any questions so far as I bring us back?
Nothing specific, Jen. We do have a couple of newbies that I'm suggesting that they stay online with you during the office hours to get some individual assistance.
Perfect.
That's it, but nothing else that really you could address for the whole group.
Okay, perfect, thank you. So when we're monitoring online instruction, being mindful that if you want to see what lessons completed from the diagnostic assigned or the teacher assigned, currently we need to drill down to the diagnostic student results. Knowing that a new report called Personalized Instruction is expected to be released next week, and I will talk to Alan Rock for more information. Second thing, when you're monitoring yellow or red alerts from home, first check on the time on task before you do anything. That can solve a lot of our issues. And then thinking about, is that student working on lessons that are appropriate for their grade level? Are they working above grade level like Cooper in late 3, or are they working really below? Okay, because you can be mindful of that and adjust instruction accordingly. And then finally, when we're looking at, like, well, he could use more time on task, he could use less time on task, how do I start communicating this to the families? In your educator guide on page 10, we have specifically adapted our next steps to support you in communicating with families. So it's a great page just to tab and to come back to as you're thinking about next steps on how to communicate with families in online instruction. All right, And the last is just saying, okay, now that we know about online instruction, some different ways to use those lessons with our students, and we can assign and we can be strategic, purposeful, intentional about assigning teacher-assigned lessons and the monitoring. What tips and tools can I share with my family? Okay, so based on school closure, we created a special page that supports at-home learning. And so I'll walk you through and then I'll take you there so that you can access that. So it's called Supporting Students Away from School. This page is available in Spanish. Okay, and it also has printable at-home learning packets. So in our session on Thursday, we're going to be looking at these a little bit more closely and leveraging them with online instruction. Because for online instruction, it's like one skill that complements your teacher-led, but what if you want more practice around? What resources do we have paper-based to kind of complement and limit the amount of overexposure for screen time? The second thing, we've created a special page for educators that support you and resources. And then finally, guidance for families. This page has been updated on since Friday. So I'd like us to go there because there's some specific things that are awesome for your families. The first thing is that you can send families to this website and they can access all of this information themselves. So one thing to note is that if you liked the iReady dashboard slides that show the student screen, you're like, gosh, that would be great for my parents or my families. They're right here. We've adapted them to be more family friendly, to give more information about navigating the student dashboard. The second thing is technical support. All of a sudden, you're probably wearing an IT hat and you're like, I didn't sign up for this IT hat. Like, I don't know tech support. So we have tutorials, 1 to 2 minute tutorials that provide basically how to update your Chromebook or iPad or whatnot, just to support you, so you can definitely deliver or send your families here. A lot of you are using the data trackers for online instruction. Those are also downloadable here for your families. And then for the younger ones or whatnot, we've got some coloring pages. So let me just go ahead and the easiest way to get there is I just like to open up a new URL and I do iReady/@home. And that will bring me to this page right here. And you can see that we do have it in Spanish and your at-home printable packs right here and your teacher resources and your family resources right here. Now, some families have asked, they're like, hey, Jen, for this family page, is it going to be supported in Spanish? And that is on its way. All right, let's circle back and we'll finish off with next steps. So you have your reference guide, the educator guide. Helpful pages are from 12 to page 21. Go ahead and visit iReady.com to explore some additional resources. We will also be doing that on Thursday for that training. And feel free to email your families at iReady.com at home. So this concludes our presentation for today. I just want to thank you so much for your time. I know there's a lot going on with virtual training with this new environment. Nevertheless, we so appreciate your time today and your support for your students. If there's anything that you need that we can do for you, we're constantly taking feedback and we send that to our product team. And that's how we get our new updates and resources to support on our family page. So if you have a chance, we would welcome your feedback. There's 2 ways to do that. We'll put the iReady.com in the survey monkey in the chat. And then if you do have a phone, you just put it on the camera and the survey should pop right up with the information that you'll need to put into the survey. So thank you so much. Mona, do we have any questions to finish this off with before we head into office hours?
I have one question. You mentioned about Thursday. What training is that? Because I didn't see that through our district.
Okay. Did you say Thursday?
Yes. You mentioned.
Yeah. Yep. So Thursday, we're just gonna. It's basically focusing on leveraging online instruction with the at-home learning packets. Like, how do we put them together? So it kind of looks at an overall learning plan, just a high-level learning plan. I will also address close reading lessons, just a high level what those look like and some considerations to use them in an at-home learning context. And then if you didn't have a chance to attend the math learning games tomorrow, I'll do a brief high-level overview of math learning games. So it's all about, we have our online instruction, and then with online instruction, what other resources we have? We have math learning games for K through 5. We've got close reading lessons, 2nd through 5th grade, and then we've got these at-home activity packs, K through 8. How do I start looking at them? How do they start working together for me?
Okay, that's great, but do we need to sign up? Because I didn't see that. I've only seen other things that Jason Sorich sent to us, was just this one. So how?
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
That's really good to know. I will send Jason an email about asking him if he's
Okay.
write your name or private message me your name and your email, and then I can.
Well, actually, you know what? Not to bust your bubble. Actually, I know some of my coworkers are listening to me, all of you guys. I'm going to be moved to 1st grade, so I haven't done iReady for a year. So I'm just going on. It's really nice